All right, we're just waiting to get our Facebook Live, YouTube Live, and LinkedIn Live feeds all set up. I'm broadcasting simultaneously to all three channels through Switchboard Live, a fantastic app that allows me to propagate this video to all my social media. I'm going to talk a little bit of where we left off last week. We were talking about money. We were talking about shifting our attitude towards money from one of scarcity to one of abundance. And what that means is that we're changing our context for our relationship with money. And I want to be very clear, and this is a nuanced, it's a delicate point, it's hard, it can be very hard to understand, but our relationship with money has very little to do with how much money we actually have. I can tell you that there are people who are struggling, for whom money, the actual flow of it into their account and into their lives is very difficult, who have a very abundant attitude about it. And I can tell you that there are men I work with who have a very rich wealth, very deep bench of financial energy, and money is still a very scarce and scary concept for them. And so we want to talk about it in the abstract, in the sense that it's not about the bank account, it's about the attitude towards the bank account. Now, I also want one of the goals in today's live that I want to focus on is I want to shift it from just this abstract idea that may seem kind of airy-fairy to some people, that money, it's not how much money, but it's how you think about your money. And I want to shift it to some very tangible, countable, because money is an accounting matter as well as a conceptual matter. I want to bring it down to this accountability level so that we can start looking at how that accountability actually connects with our attitude shift. So let's get right into that. So let's talk about some very basic things about money. Do you know what your bank account is right now? Maybe not to the penny, but do you have a rough idea? Within maybe tens of dollars or hundreds of dollars. Is it something that you check regularly? Is it something that you monitor regularly? Or is it more sort of like eyes closed and you just sort of peek out when you have to and you're like, oh, you know, is it the kind of thing like you don't want to have to deal with it because you're afraid of it? And that's not an abundant attitude. That's a scarcity attitude. And how do we change that attitude? Well, sometimes we can change it the most by facing the fear, feeling the fear, and doing it anyway. So a real powerful, specific, tangible thing you can start doing to changing your attitude about money is just making yourself aware of how much money you actually have. And that can take on a number of faces. It can have a lot of different looks. There's a lot of different ways to do it, I think is what I'm trying to say. One is, can you get in the habit of regularly checking your bank balance? And that may be on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. I think that particularly in the beginning, when you're just getting started, it's not as important how often you do it as it is that you do it. So maybe it's every 3 days. What do you need to do to be able to become more aware, to shift yourself out of a scarcity-derived ignorance or blindness or unconsciousness and into an abundance leaning awareness? We can't become abundant about those things that we know nothing about. We become abundant by really owning it, by really wrapping ourselves around it. By that's sort of what abundance means, is that we have enough of ourselves to go around that we can manage, we can get around anything that we're facing. That's an abundance mindset. So the first step is, what's your bank balance? Take a look at it. That can get more complex because you can then start to say, okay, what is my net worth? That can, and you can sit down and say, and that there's actually an easy way to calculate that. It takes a little bit of homework, but it's really just adding up the value of everything that you own. Your car, your house, if you own a house, if you have any jewelry, if you have any investments, stocks, people who do have a lot of money, whether they feel abundant or not, may have calculated their net worth. They may have had to for certain business decisions, for when they wanted to buy a home or a second home. And so that's another way to become more aware of your financial situation. Again, that's another way to move out of that scarcity, that fear-induced scarcity, towards that abundant leaning awareness. So once we start to understand how much money we have at the moment, can we take another step and start looking at the budget, a budget of how are we managing our money? And that, remember, every budget has two components. It has both an income level and it has an outflow level. It's income and expenses is what it's called. And just getting an awareness of that is maybe the next level to having more an abundant awareness of it. Now, I'm sure that there are people watching this right now who are saying, not in a million frickin' years do I want to make a budget. If this was the attitude about like looking at the bank account, the budget is probably like, just sort of like, nope, getting out of that, dodging that one. Not in a million years am I going to do that. Because why? Because your scarcity approach to the idea of just monitoring. I'm not even telling you to change how you mine it, what your money is doing, to stop, to start reducing expenses or start increasing income or increasing expenses if you find you spend no money. And, I don't even want to get into that. But isn't that where your mind is already going? Is like, oh my God, I'm going to discover that I'm way overspending, that, that I waste too much money, that whatever your money story is going to be triggered by the idea of creating a budget. And that's really important to understand, because I want to ask you to put aside that story, no matter how much it may be raging in your ears as we're having this conversation, in your inner ear, between your ears. No matter how much it's raging, can you put aside that story? It's going to be there. Put it on the shelf. We can pick it up anytime we want. And you can embrace that story and live in that story and feel the energy and fear that it creates for you. Fine, no problem. But can we not do that right now? Can we just say right now, let's get out a pen, let's get out a pen or a pencil and very soberly say, okay, this is how much money I have coming in. And these are the things I have to spend money on each month. And I don't want to get into the details of how to do that, because I can already hear you're going off to, well, what about things that I don't have to spend money on every month? And how do I budget for car repairs? And, all those details. There are many other YouTube videos, there are Skillshare classes, there are any number of things, any number of tools you can turn to learn how to really craft a budget in a kind of expert way. I'm not here to teach you that. That's not what I'm about. What I'm here to do is to support you, to kind of embrace you and help you embrace the idea that becoming more financially aware in a very tactical and tangible and specific sense is a key to your liberation around money. It is a key to you moving from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset. Even if it doesn't feel like it at first, it's going to carry you through. And let me just be very specific about that. It's going to give you the dopamine fuel of rewarding yourself, of saying, I did a good thing for myself. I talk about this all the time. It's like making your bed. You make your bed in the morning. You've done a very minor but positive thing to get your day started. And when you look back at the bed, it's almost impossible to look at it and not feel just a tiny bit proud of yourself. Just a tiny bit of, attaboy, good job. I did a good positive thing for myself. That's a little bit of a dopamine loop you're creating for yourself, a positive endocrinological chemical that's going to feed your day. Why not get started with that? So as scary as it may be to go to your bank account, whether you do it online or you do it, do you have the app downloaded from your bank, by the way, to be able to check your account? Can you log into it easily? Do you know your password? These may all be steps that you've put between you and your relationship with money. And I want to be very clear. You're saying to yourself, "Oh, I didn't put them there. It's, the app is too complicated." The app, it's the app's fault is really what you're saying. If you can't log into your bank account online, or if you don't have these tools in place, that's because that's a sign to me of your avoidance of it. I'm asking you to start becoming accountable to yourself about your accounting. It's interesting how there's that same word in there. And when we do that, even if it's in the most basic way, just getting that taken care of is going to be that tiny little dopamine rush. That's going to be that tiny little moment where you're like, okay, good, I got that taken care of. And then maybe the next day you actually go in and check what the account is. And maybe you do it the following day, or you do it 2 days later, so that you're keeping track of it, so that your bank account becomes kind of like, if you're a sports fan, you're checking the baseball score or the football score, or you're keeping up with anything that you're doing on a regular basis. Checking your Facebook feed, for instance, checking in on YouTube and watching a few more videos, or keeping up on your LinkedIn feed. Those are all things that we do every day where we maintain a dialogue, a relationship with the outside world. I am asking you to maintain and create a relationship with your money. And so then once you start looking at what your bank balance is and getting comfortable with that, maybe you do it for a week. Let's say you really challenge yourself and say, every day for a week, I'm just going to check my bank balance. It's a little bit like working out. It's like getting yourself to the gym. And if that was a non-starter and you're saying to yourself, oh my God, I'm not even going to get into whether I'm working out or not, or whether I'm doing it regularly, don't have to go there. I'm just using it as an example. But can you make a commitment to do it for 7 days, or maybe the 5 business days, or it's Tuesday, maybe the every day remaining in this week. Let's just do it for 3 days, 4 days, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Because I'm in California and we've still got all of Tuesday in front of us. So can you do that? And then can you start thinking about what it would look like to really start just becoming aware of what money is coming in on a regular basis and what money is going out on a regular basis. There's all kinds of opportunities that you're going to discover when you start doing that. But the biggest one is that you're going to start shifting. You're going to feel this shift where you're moving from this scarcity and fearful relationship with money to one that is leaning towards, if not entirely abundant, but you're moving in that direction. You're leaving one camp and you're moving into the other. And there's no inner place. There's no in-between place. The minute you turn your back on scarcity, you are in abundance land. So think about that. The minute you start checking your bank account, you're already in abundance land. You may not feel it yet. You may not be able to take in all the sights. You may not have sampled all the delectable foods in abundance land, but you are there. And now it's just a matter of moving from that border to where you want to be. So think about those ideas this week. Check your bank balance. 2 really simple things. Check your bank balance. See if you need to set up a budget and how carefully are you tracking it, just to get aware of what's coming in and what's going out. Those are 2 very tactical, tangible things you can do that's going to start shifting your overall scarcity and mindset into an abundance mindset. I'm Mark Rothman, Progress Coach. You can find me on YouTube at Mark Rothman Progress Coach, on Facebook at Mark Rothman Progress Coach, and on LinkedIn at Mark Rothman Progress Coach. Send me a message. Let me know what you think of this. And Also, check out my course on Skillshare, 6 Live Your Bigger, Better Life, 6 tools to help you stop playing small. I'm also on Listenable with the same course, Live Your Bigger, Better Life, 6 tools to help you stop playing small. And I'll see you again next week.